I am Bernice Abubedu-Lansa. Thank you for making time to join the program. Now, the seat of government, the Jubilee House, Kotoka International Airport, Tema Harbour, and other key national assets are in danger of destruction should there be an earthquake in Ghana. This is because these facilities fall within the earthquake zone, which stretches between the Volta, Greater Accra, Eastern and parts of the Central region. Ghana has recorded 3 earthquakes in 1615, 1636, and the last was in 1939. All these resulting in 17 deaths, 133 injuries, leading to the resettlement of hundreds of people in Accra. Well, President Akufo-Addo on Thursday accepted the recommendation of a committee put together to advise the government on ways to contain possible earthquakes in the country. We'll hear more from the President and NADMO on the way forward. But first, let's get some understanding on the committee's report. Presidential correspondent Elton Brobe joins me via Zoom, and he was there when this recommendation was made. So, Elton, quickly, it's quite a list and the details are quite a lot. So, quickly, we'll just give a brief background to the forming of this committee before Elton gives us details of the recommendations. Let me quickly bring you that. So, after Ghana experienced some minor earthquakes in the latter parts of 2018 and the early parts of 2019, the Minister of Interior, Ambrose Derry, inaugurated a 10-member committee on March 12, 2019 to examine the events and draw a framework for refocusing Ghana's earthquake preparedness and response. So, the committee quickly was made up of is made up of engineer Mrs. Carleen Bouchedi. She's chairperson. You see the reps of NADMO, the Ghana Geological Survey Authority, Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority. The list goes on and on, including the Ghana Health Service, NADMO, the Armed Forces and the police. But here are the terms of reference to identify and outline the key measures that must be undertaken by relevant agencies to empower our communities to be well prepared and resilient for reduction of seismic risk, outline other response measures required by stakeholders and agencies in the event of an earthquake to include the recovery phase. The third is to evaluate the capacities of relevant bodies mandated with the national response to identify resource gaps and recommend measures to augment their capabilities towards effective response. Finally, to determine the kind of international support that may be required. So, Elton, quickly run us through the recommendations. Let's start with characterizing the earthquake hazard. What does that really mean?
So, Ben, is according to them, a full characterization of the earthquake hazard is required to facilitate an assessment of the likely effect on people and structures, but this can only be based on a full understanding of the earthquake hazard. And for them, there is therefore the urgent need to increase the coverage and density of Ghana's digital seismic network and ensure continuous monitoring. Also, modern techniques such as cosmology must be employed to improve knowledge of historical seismicity. So these are what they mean by the need to characterize the earthquake hazards. And according to them, efforts by the Ghana Geological Survey Authority and the Ghana Institution of Engineering to undertake a robust probabilistic seismic hazard analysis for Ghana will be supported in this direction so that we can lay a proper foundation for the others to follow.
It's quite a list, so we'll just sample a few. Let's quickly move on to the fifth point, which is construct new infrastructure to meet desired performance level.
So already there is a call by the President for the engineering department of the Ministry of Works and Housing to undertake comprehensive integrity audits of all public houses in the country to determine whether they are in a better position to withstand any earthquake that may happen in the country. Now, the report says that new structures must be properly designed and constructed. For buildings, there is a need for a consensus position to be reached by society on desired performance levels. In the event of the real major earthquake, the level of damage that is considered acceptable for a well-designed or retrofitted structure must be subject to discussion. And this has both social and economic implications, although there's no statement to this effect. According to the current Ghana Building Code, it's most probably focus on life safety for the majority of buildings, meaning that even well-designed buildings will be badly damaged in an earthquake. What they are trying to say is that the buildings we have in the country does not factor in the likelihood impact of earthquake in the country. They're only looking at the safety of the occupants. And because we are in the danger zone, there's a need for a new building code that incorporates the need to build it such that it may be able to withstand a possible earthquake that the country might face today or tomorrow, or the years to come.
So Elton, this is futuristic. Quickly, they also give some recommendations on what can be done for already existing vulnerable infrastructure, where they talk about retrofit vulnerable infrastructure. Give us the details on that.
And so, Ben, on that particular score already, there's a directive that there should be auditing of existing structures. Now, with critical structures, according to them, it is quite clear that that damage, if any, must be minimized, that these structures must remain in service or return to service quickly, even after experiencing the real large earthquake. The loss of electricity, telecommunication, potable water, and hospital facilities for a long period could worsen the plight of survivors of a major earthquake and should therefore be avoided at all costs. Performance criteria should therefore be established by regulators of these facilities for owners and operators. So they're even looking beyond buildings. They are looking at other social amenities like water, electricity, telecommunication. They are saying that the impacts on these in the event of an earthquake will take years for us to return to normalcy. And for that reason, everything must be done to fortify these areas to protect them, starting with existing structures, which obviously accommodate a large number of people. So in the event of an earthquake, beyond the destruction, we might have to report more deaths, but we can prevent this by fortifying these existing buildings to withstand any earthquake.
All right, so let's just wrap this up quickly. So they also recommend education and sensitization of communities to reduce their vulnerability. Then this one, which is of utmost importance, is prepare for swift and effective response, and includes NADMO preparing an earthquake contingency plan, urban search and rescue strategy needed, and ensure adequate resources for response. But Elton, I would like us to, in wrapping up this conversation, talk about having a plan to build back better.
Okay, so perhaps we can start from the education bits, and it's also part of the directive that was given to NADMO. And for a start, NADMO is to engage the Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service to cooperate into what the students are learning, education on earthquake and what you must do when there is one, and how best this education can trickle down to the larger population of this country. So teaching the kids in school about earthquake is the first step. The second step is to expand this education across the country so that everybody is aware of the danger ahead, and when it comes, how best you can confront it. So that is what NADMO has been tasked to do. Again, NADMO has been asked to draw up an earthquake contingency plan and ensure the preparedness of all those that may be involved. Now, this will include local and international agencies, non-governmental organizations, volunteers, etc. Now, due to recognition must also be given to the fact that there may be multiple consequential emergencies such as fire, landslide, gas leakage, flooding from burst pipes and collapsed buildings, and the expertise of persons who would normally be engaged in emergency response may be required, such as structural engineers, to ensure safe extraction. So, in brief, this is how it goes: urban search, healthcare for the injured, transporting the injured, ensure adequate resources for responses, have a plan to build back better. Following a major earthquake, there will be the need to return affected areas to normalcy within the shortest possible time to reduce the negative impact on the country's economy. At the same time, the recovery process must ensure an improvement in the resilience of affected communities by building back better. And these two competing demands, according to them, can best be satisfied with the prior planning, and it's recommended that relevant issues are carefully examined and openly discussed before a disaster occurs. And Ben, as you know, these things cost money, and the money we are talking about are not in their thousands, but in their millions, as to whether the country is in a position to move and prepare ahead. That is a major issue. And that's the reason why the committee report has been subjected to another review by relevant bodies. And then another recommendations will go back to government for government to ensure full implementation.
Leave it here. Elton Brobe is presidential correspondent, bringing us details and highlights of that particular report or recommendations submitted to President Akufo-Addo on Thursday. Well, Director General of the National Disaster Management Organization, Eric Nanajiman Prempeh, explains the situation more in this interview with Elton.
Earthquake fault line, the zone gets to Ho, and then it passes through Eastern region, the whole of Greater Accra region, and then it ends at Nyanyano in the Central region. So these are the areas. And if you recall, when we experienced the earth tremors, especially the last one, when the magnitude was high, people felt it in so many places. And these are the areas. So it is there. We know it since 1939. And this is the time we have to work and prepare ourselves, because anything can happen. This is a natural disaster. Nobody can determine today or tomorrow, but it can happen at any time. It has happened before.
And you give us a foretaste of some of the specific areas, including our very own Jubilee House.
Yes, what I'm trying to say is that the fault line is here in Accra, where the Jubilee House is, where Kolebu is, where Bema Camp is, the ministries, and they are all on top of the fault line. So anything, when earthquake strikes, I mean, it can affect any of such state institutions or state properties.
So you heard Elton speaking to the NADMO Director General. As you heard Elton say, the President has given a directive for all public buildings to be audited, for the integrity to be determined. And what does that really mean? What does it entail? We've been joined by civil engineer Abdullahi Mahama. Thank you so much for your time this morning, sir. So what would an engineer be looking out for in terms of auditing a building to determine its readiness in case of an earthquake?
Into your viewers, I pray that the President's directive will be followed to the latter. First and foremost, because the auditing of such buildings, especially the ones that we see around the airport city, the ones within the Flagstaff House, around Bema Camp, alongside to the airport, the harbour, is very expensive. So there are lots of the buildings there which are for investors. So before the present directive can be ensured to the latter, I believe there should be the requirement of the various municipal and district assemblies that captured within that location to effect that orders by the President. What am I talking about? When we talk about the structural integrity analysis, we would have to do to know the stability of those buildings that we have there. In fact, some of the buildings that we have, it's unfortunate that we cannot get it to even to be retrofitted to the level that we need. One of the things that we need to do much earlier was that if you look at the fault zone from Nyanyano all the way through about 80-90% of the Greater Accra region and ends towards the Volta region, there are few buildings for obvious reasons. I cannot mention their names on air. They are public hotels where personally we undertook some seismic tests because of the amount of money involved in running those facilities in construction. The developers thought it wise that they had to do all those various engineering tests to be very sure. And then practically, even after the outcome of the test, where they were supposed to site some of their edifices, including a swimming pool, a huge swimming pool had to be relocated. That is the importance of what the developers who feel like they want to have value for money are doing, and the rest of us who don't want to look at those areas. Now, when you're talking about the detail of those tests, it's a requirement in Ghana that when you're going to put up a building, say from 2-3 story building, the basic soil test that you have to do is the normal DCP, dynamic compenetration test, which can at least give you an adequate information about the soil from maybe the ground level to about maybe 3, 4, 5 meters, because that's the expected load that the building would exert within that distance. Now, the second option, that when we started having buildings collapsing in Ghana, the assemblies actually tightened their regulators and the requirement, where if you're constructing a house beyond the 4-story building, you have to run the structural integrity and the soil test to go beyond 4 to 10 meters. That's why you're using the SPT. Now, because of the cost involved in running the seismic, or that what we call the geophysics, I am just of the view that what can curtail this moving forward is that just like how we set the bylaws at the assembly, it should be one of the requirements, apart from the old building which we are going to do the retrofitting and do the the integrity analysis to come out with how we are going to enforce those buildings. The new ones which are springing up in Accra, within the same area, the catchment areas we are talking about, a lot of the old houses.
Unfortunately,
are being demolished.
Okay, great. Hello, engineer.
In order for us to get those
4-story, to have one of the requirements being the geophysics. Now, the geophysics will give.
Too bad we seem to have a challenge with that line of Engineer Mahama. It was just getting to the point where he was giving us what to look forward to in terms of building, what our laws should entail. Because I was just going to ask him whether we didn't already have this in our laws. We've always known that some parts of Ghana is earthquake prone. So, well, I'm told that thankfully we have Engineer Mahama back. So, sorry, we lost portions of your submission there. Just run us through what you were talking about, the seismic test, looking forward.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that I have not seen as a requirement where the local codes or the assembly bylaws have enshrined in them that you need to run a seismic test as part of your soil test. If we do not do that, they will leave the discretion for the developers of the such facilities or the hotels or those huge offices to avoid doing, because the cost involved in running the geophysics test alone is within 1 to 5% of the contract of the project sum. So it should be one of the requirements, especially when we are having high-rise buildings where the devastation is high. Like we come back and use where we have our tendons, our high-tension electrical cables moving across our communities, where we specifically have the telcos citing their masts. A lot of the telcos masts in Ghana, about 95% of them do not run the seismic test. But then look at the height of the mast, over 40 meters, 35 to 60 meters. When that thing to shake, because the area that the telcos mast would cover can just be the width of the exact fault line. So when you make it as one of the requirements that the seismic has to be run before even those high tendons are placed, it will just save the whole country when those areas are just identified and they're relocated. All
right. Okay, Engineer Mahama, so let's look at the President's directive in very practical terms. I just want you to paint a picture for us. So what will happen when engineers go to these facilities that have already been constructed? What will you do? How would you determine? What exactly do you do to determine if these buildings can withstand an earthquake, if there is any?
First and foremost, if they are going to engage the Geological Survey Department, authority, or they can even use the Geological Department of the University of Ghana, Legon. We have a lot of professors. Dr. Anna Ama is one of them, where they would have to now actually come and do what we call on-spot tests. So maybe the whole of the airport area, the whole of the Flagstaff House area, the Golden Jubilee House, and the other sensitive structures have to be zoned in. So they will do the geophysical test first and foremost to be able to identify whether indeed the whole of Accra, like we said, is like a fault zone, but whether we're having the fault line in those specific areas, because every facility would have a different approach as in how to retrofit them. So when those tests are done with those various facilities, one after the other, you would have variations, or the results or the outcomes of the line will vary. So there will be independent solutions to each and every facility within the catchment area. So they'll do the normal geophysical test and come up with the results, and the results will be about 99% adequate. And then based on the outcome of the results, they will know that, okay, this facility in particular has to be retrofitted in this direction. This one that doesn't need so much of that. This one needs, so that is the outcome. So that's one, the first and foremost, what ought to be done is that the geophysical investigation has to be carried out before any other process continues.
All right.
That will give us the outcome.
Does the auditing include a simulation of an earthquake of the sort? Is there anything like that, or you just use machines to test the integrity of the building to see if it can withstand?
No, they are not. They are not even.
Oh, too bad. Well, I hear he's back.
Am I on the line?
Yes, you are. We lost you earlier, but you're back.
Right. So what I'm saying is that you don't necessarily have to model the earthquake. What you need to do first, the ground, the soil, gives us information. Like if I'm doing a soil test for a company who's about to do a 10-story building, I cannot cook the result. Whatever test I'm going to carry out on the soil would give me information that I need to give to a structural engineer for the foundation design. So you don't have to model the earthquake because you don't know the magnitude of the earthquake that will come. But when you're able to know the actual fault lines, the resonance, the electrophysics, and then the seismic structures would give you adequate information about the intensity, the magnitude of whatever you are going to receive in case there's any earthquake. So that information is not something that you are supposed to model. You will get the information after the seismic fraction test and the electroresistivity test have been conducted.
Okay.
That information will now be available for whoever is going to undertake the electrophysics.
Okay.
So like I said, if like from Joy FM, JoyNews TV, the next distance maybe to Circle, there will be a difference in the faults. Maybe the Joy FM would have maybe 5, the other will have about 7. So based on that, the information that will be available to the engineers who will now undertake the electrofitting will now use the information to pin those buildings and get the buildings to be stable enough.
All right,
to get us any minimum damage that comes out.
Let's wrap up this conversation. You mentioned the need to introduce new laws to help deal with buildings that will come up in the future in terms of the tests of those buildings or the soils they are going to be erected on to determine how safe they are. But should we also be looking at creating laws to determine what kind of materials can be used for structures that will be sited on fault lines?
Yes, they already, if you are moving on the Spinters Road, you will find out that some of the structures which are coming out now are with the I-beams, the metal, the steel beams. You see the I-section buildings. So those ones are able to move and be able to bend when there's a certain magnitude of the earthquake. Not that it can withstand all the shocks, but it is much, much better to use those ones that I've seen springing up along the, the Spinters Road now. And a lot of other ones I've seen within even the airport area. There are a lot of buildings which are coming up, and they are using those composite materials where when there is an impact, the whole concrete structure's impact will be so higher than that of the new ones. So, like I said, when the requirement, okay, when there's you see, in my line of duty, I realized one thing. The investors or the developer or the client is sometimes reluctant to undertake such tests because of the cost involved. But once it becomes a requirement for a permit to be given for the resumption of works, you can only have to adhere. So that's what I'm saying, that it should be enshrined as one of the bylaws of all the assemblies, so that when the building is going to be constructed, if that test is not conducted, You don't give the permit. And secondly, it informs the developer or the client that because of the nature of the fault lines, these are the material that you have to go in for. So that you don't just go and be doing blank purchases to go and do concrete works where you don't need the concrete works there. So that's one of the most important things. And one of the things that I would also recommend or advise is that I have seen a lot of government schools, okay, government buildings, which let's say if DES is going to construct a 3-story building about 100 meters long for a school. The template is done at the GS office in Accra. And the same template, the same foundation design, the same column thickness, the same slab thickness, that is carried across all the schools. So government itself should now ensure that because they don't go for permits, when government buildings are being constructed in the schools, for instance, they don't mostly go for permits from the assemblies. They have to make it as one of the requirements that they themselves would have to ensure that, because every foundation at Pram Pram cannot be the same foundation as Pabinya, cannot be the same foundation at McCarthy Hill, and certainly not in Bema Camp. So you cannot do one design. It's also good that when you are doing one design, like you are supposed to multiply the same drawing across the country, like maybe what we have like the E blocks as an example. So if I'm going to do the E block at Pabinya with the same foundation, maybe 1 meter or 1.5 meter or 2 meter thick, that foundation cannot survive at Pram Pram because you are dealing with high matrix clay in Pram Pram, where if you are in Kwabenya, you are getting a high weathered rock which the foundation can stay around 1.5 meters. But at Pram Pram, you can go beyond 3 meters for the foundation. So that's an advice to the government as well at the end of the day.
I appreciate your time this morning. Engineer Abdullahi Mahama joined us for this very important conversation. And if you just joined the program, the background to all of this is that a committee was set up in March 2019 by Interior Minister Ambrose Derry to examine and draw a framework for refocusing Ghana's earthquake preparedness and response. And this was after there were some minor earthquakes, or what we call tremors, observed in the latter part of 2018 and the early parts of 2019, if you remember. So, well, we will definitely get a feedback on the review of the recommendations by this committee to government. But let's move on to some other stories now. One more person has been arrested in connection with the gruesome killing of the 10-year-old boy at Kaswa. The latest arrest brings to 4 people being held in connection with the crime. The headquarters of the Criminal Investigations Department has meanwhile taken over investigations. DSP Julian Obing speaks for the police CID.
I can just continue to confirm an arrest that was made yesterday of one Charity Mensah, who is a priestess and a nursing mother. And then, of course, one other guy with the name Desmond Ni AJ, who is 27 years, for the alleged involvement in the murder of a 10-year-old boy at Kaswa. We are still going on with investigations, and if there's the need for us to, as it were, make more arrests, or as it were, review what our colleagues in the central region have already done, we will do that. But I have the assurance from the CID administration and the Ghana Police Service as a whole, led by the Inspector General of Police, that there's going to be justice, and justice will duly be served going through the legal processes and the due processes. There are lots of details, but unfortunately we are not able to share these details with you at this time. Reason being that investigation is still ongoing. We are looking forward to probably tomorrow or the days coming ahead, where we can properly come back with full details of proceedings after investigations conducted so far. But for now, we'd want to just encourage the public to help us with investigation, and of course encourage us to be circumspect in our reportage. It's quite sentimental. There are emotions involved in this case, so we want to be careful how we go about the reportage.
Meanwhile, friends and classmates of the deceased have described him as a generous and kind boy who always shared whatever little he had. Scores of people gathered Thursday for his burial at the Amanfo Cemetery in Kaswa after his body was eventually released by the police. Maxwell Agbagba was there and reports.
tears as the hearse carrying 10-year-old Ishmael pulls up in front of his residence. Uncontrollable wailing as mothers and children could not hold back their tears. People from all walks of life have gathered to say their final goodbyes. Ishmael is on a stretcher covered with a piece of cloth. Islamic prayers are being recited for him.
Little Ishmael has been described as an intelligent child. He was in class 4 at the Maranatha Primary and Junior High School. I've been speaking to his best friend, who tells me that he's going to miss the daily sobolo that he buys for him every day after school.
Someone told me, Madam Felicia. He told me, I thought that Madam Felicia was lying, but in the Tuesday, when I go to school, my teacher told me that my best friend, then I said that he's lying. Everybody was saying, and I go and watch the video on my teacher's phone.
You watched the video?
Yes, on my teacher's phone. I saw it that Abdullah have done. It was a bad news.
What are your fondest memories of him?
Every day when I don't have money, and Abdullah will give me money to go and buy.
You give money to what?
Go and buy.
Okay.
And also, every day if you close, some woman sells sobo, you buy 1 CD for me. You buy 1 CD for me. If you ask Abdullah, so you should buy 1 sobo for you, he will buy it. He will buy it, and he's a very good boy. He's a good boy, and he's very kind to me.
I've also been talking to his class teacher, who says his contributions towards class discussions will definitely be missed.
He's very good, he's obedient, he's not a dull type. He's always punctual in class. He really loves everybody in the school. He's caring, he's generous, he's kind. So even his friends can testify to that. He really loves everyone in the class. He's always in class. So we can't forget Ishmael just like that. No one expected this to happen to Ishmael. So we are all down. We are in examination week, and then things are not going on well for us because our spirit is not up. We are really down. We are really down. Even the energy that the children has for the exam is what is it's down. It's down. It's down.
What are your fondest memories of him?
So anytime I ask question in class, he'll be like, "Sir, please, I want to answer. Sir, please, I want to answer." So he has this. He wants to attempt. You see, he wants to attempt any question you ask in class, and I think he's good. He's good. He's loving. He's caring and generous.
It appears to be the end of the road for little Ishmael, but persons who are gathered here believe that it is actually the beginning of a better journey. Ongoing right now are final prayers which are being said for his soul. But I've been speaking to a member of the Communications Committee in Parliament and Member of Parliament for Bachiano English, a man from Sylvester Tete. He wants authorities to clamp down on the activities of fraudulent traditional priests who use the media to propagate get-rich-quick messages.
Well, I'm a member and a vice chairman of the Communications Committee in Parliament, where these things, the laws falls under our purview. We'll come back to that discussion. I believe that they are calling, but we'll come back to have that discussion.
What do you think should be done in the interim?
Well, we need to have the law to regulate content on our media space. The point is that all the reasons people are ascribing to are possible, but equally speculative. Unless police investigate. Of course, we have the world standard of police per 1,000 persons in an area, and of course we need some infrastructure to be able to combat crime in every vicinity. So we won't rule out lack of logistics or lack of enough presence of policemen and women. But this particular incident, I'm not too sure in a neighborhood like this, you have to have a police officer policing 2 or 3 young people playing in the vicinity. I'm not too sure, no matter the degree of policing you give in the community, will require this. Crime is a crime, irrespective of how it comes. And I know that crime anywhere is treated as such. We must go, the influx of foreigners, of course, Ghana is a big country, play host to a lot of people. It does not mean we should lose our guard as far as security is concerned because of influx of our neighbors coming into this country. So for me, I think that we must, as a matter of fact, intensify our security. We must, as a country and as a community, also be our neighbors' keeper.
Really sad development that we say may Ishmael's soul rest in perfect peace. Away from that, residents living near the Oti landfill site in the Ashanti region are worried about the indiscriminate dumping of untreated fecal matter in the Oda River. According to inhabitants, they are living in a hazardous environment and are at risk of contracting sanitation-related diseases. That's more in the following report.
4 communities, Oti, Aprabon, Atunsukuwait, and Dompoase are the most affected by the indiscriminate discharges. The discharge does not go directly into the water, but it does go through a seepage from the landfill site to the Oda River. The fecal discharge in this region emits an unbearable stench. Emmanuel Kofi Mensah is chairman of the Landlords Association at the area.
They pour the fecal discharge in the gutter and it goes straight to the Oda. Sometimes they pour it on the road and the stench is unbearable.
According to a 2015 study conducted by students of K University's chemistry department, the Oda River is unsafe to drink. In the midst of the fecal sludge, residents have connected a PVC pipe to collect surface water through the outlets. Some residents have complained about their health safety.
The water is not clean because of the fecal discharge they pour in the Oda. The Oda is contaminated because of where the toilet pipe was connected. But for the flood, you would have seen it.
The assembly member for the Atunsukuwait Aprabon electoral area, Elliot Ofusubano, says he was diagnosed with an ulcer-causing bacterium.
The disease is associated with fecal or probably toilet. It's affecting the residents. I personally have been diagnosed with a disease called H. pylori bacteria infection. There's a community clinic here in the community called Lady Julia. Residents have been frequenting there with bacteria infections as a result of the landfill site.
The Lady Julia clinic located in the area confirmed diagnosing people with such diseases. Clinician assistant Dr. Kweku Usu Afram says the high pylori bacteria thrives in contaminated environment.
H. pylori is fecal-oral. When we say fecal-oral, is when you come into contact with any fecal matter that is contaminated. When you take it, you will get it. Because foot might overwhelm us. Majority of the people are having the H. pylori infection.
Last year, residents here staged a demonstration over the poor disposal of waste. They blamed the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly for the poor management of the liquid waste. Spokesperson for the KME, Ifiakunedu Abuaje, responded to the concerns.
This is the first time we are hearing that the liquid waste enters the Oda River. No, we haven't heard that, but if you are bringing it to our attention, we'll also notify the waste management to take a look at it.
But until city authorities address this waste disposal challenge, an environmental epidemic looms in the area.
You're watching News Desk with me, Bernice Abubedulan. So we've got more stories for you right after this. Thank you for staying. Time now for business news. An energy expert, Dr. Yusuf Suleiman, has urged government to pull the brakes on recent plans by the Ghana Grid Company to export power to Mali. At a meeting with stakeholders and CSOs, Gridco explained that Ghana has excess power supply amidst recent outages. But speaking earlier on the marketplace, Dr. Yusuf Suleiman expressed the need for stakeholders to consider cleaning up issues relating to faulty transmission lines before considering exports to neighboring Mali.
If renewables can come to the extent that they can be in commercial basis, there's going to be competition, and cost-wise, it's going to come down. So I think going forward, that is a call in the right direction. We have to double up. And one suggestion I can give is, in most jurisdictions, if you look at most jurisdictions, in Ghana, for instance, I think we have Energy Commission championing the issue of renewables. Can we think about our national oil company, let's say GNPC, championing that or supporting that? You know, because our success in the renewables will come from the successes in the fossil fuel, portions of it.
Exactly.
We have to be able to gravitate.
Not to catch you there, but it also poses, concerns of the cost element, because as you rightly stated, currently it's so much expensive to venture into renewables as to the conventional and even traditional way of energy transmission. But just before you leave, Doctor, exporting power to Mali, I mean, is this too early a conversation to start? We did hear that from Gridco.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, domestically, we are still struggling to, sort ourselves out. Nevertheless, it should be a call in the right direction, especially if we have robust investment. I mean, we have massive investment into the transmission system. Already, the generations we are already saying we have excess capacity. And so if you have robust transmission system, why not? I think it's not a bad call. But I think let's fix our home. Let's make sure that our internal capabilities are well catered for, then we can think about that. However, concurrently, it is not a bad idea. I mean, we can think about that. Let's also think about investing in that. But I believe that we need to fix whatever issues that we have within our internal capabilities as in transmission, then we can think about exporting.
Away from that, the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, PFAG, the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development, and the Ghana National Sesame Business Farmers Association have embarked on a street march to draw government's attention to the need to invest in agroecology. The street march, dubbed March for Agroecology, took place at Bolgatanga in the Upper East region. Correspondent Albert Sore reports.
Incorporated in the year 2001, the Ghana Nast Limited is one of the leading agro-processing industries in the country. As the first solvent extraction and shea butter refinery plant in West Africa, the company is currently contributing immensely to the socio-economic development of the people through job creation and the effective implementation of its corporate social responsibility. Borno East Regional Minister Mr. Kwesi Edujan, as part of his broader plans to commercialize agriculture, paid a working visit to the company to ascertain the pressing needs of the company.
You are aware that a couple of days ago I did launch my vision, and as part of the vision for the region is to make the Borno East region a preferred destination for industries, for agro-processing industries. It is therefore necessary that we look at the gaps that prevents the young men from working and having access to market, and also to discuss with the industries the difficulties and the problems that they are having in respect to raw materials. So for that reason, we are here today.
Mr. Obed Asante is the Chief Executive Officer of the company. He says the company's major challenge is the lack of raw materials to feed its processing plants as it continuously imports from neighboring countries to meet its demands.
Our main challenge at the moment is the raw material. As a company, you have over 2,000 employees, and then somewhere along the line, middle of the year, you are short of raw material. And then we have them being forced to travel to some places like Burkina Faso, to Niger, and then also even as far as to Benin, Nigeria, to go and buy raw materials. As it gets here, then you know the prices then be going up. So if you have the youth around Techiman and or the Bro and Hafo region, and if they can produce the raw material for you, then I think that is what we are looking for.
He adds that with proper partnership with government, more jobs could be created as the company is currently producing below capacity.
And we want to partner also with the farmers and then also with the government and see how the best way we can get the raw material. By doing so, I think we also create jobs for the youth.
Well, when we come back right after these messages, we'll be discussing the Europa League games played last night. Do stay for sports.